Welcome to the Business Mechanic Show. This is your host, Vaughn Sigmund, and today we're going to talk about the communication revolution, how elite leaders cut through the BS. Look, I'm going to be straight with you. The difference between a forgettable manager and a legendary leader isn't some mystical leadership quality you're born with. It's something far simpler, yet brutally effective: crystal clear communication. Now, this message today is all prompted by a couple recent interactions that I've had where teams, leaders are just not on the same page. They're not aligned. And as I look at the scenarios and unpack what's happening here, it's a real breakdown in communication. The problem is very often leaders are communicating, but don't realize they're not communicating. They may be talking, but the audience, their team, the people who are going to be involved in making their team successful, their company successful, this initiative successful, aren't interpreting at the rate that this leader needs them to. They're not accepting the information. They can't translate the information in a way that's going to make it as actionable and successful as it possibly can. And very often leaders develop these tics, if you will, these spasms. They create these communication styles that, because nobody's correcting them on it, it just lives on. I sat in a meeting last week where it was an alignment meeting with a group of very smart individuals, high-powered individuals, and there was one person on the team. As we're talking through some strategies, looked across the person, "You're asking me the wrong question. You're not asking the right question. Ask me the right question." And the other person just looks at him in confusion and go, "What the hell are you talking about? You got to ask the right question." What the hell does that even mean? And why would somebody want to do that? I think I understand why. They learned to do that. Somewhere they found that they copied that from somebody, thinking that was a strategic or intelligent way to communicate with somebody, is to teach them to ask better questions. I get it, but it's very ineffective. So in today's podcast, we're going to talk about how to have more effective conversations and communications with your teams to where they understand everything they need to understand in order to go execute at a very high level. While everyone else is chasing fancy leadership theories and downloading the latest management apps, the real players, the real communicators, the real hotshot leaders know that communication is the damn foundation to everything else is being built on, because you want to avoid confusion. There's a very high cost to confusion. Let me paint you a picture. Your team is nodding along in a meeting room. You've outlined the quarterly goals, thrown some charts up on the screen, and wrapped it up with, "Any questions?" Nobody speaks up. You think, perfect, they get it. I'm oversimplifying that a little bit, but I see it happen all the time. So I'm going to fast forward 2 weeks for you. Projects are stalled, decisions aren't being made, different departments are working cross purposes, and that brilliant initiative you were so excited about, it's on life support. Nothing's happening. What the hell happened? I'll tell you exactly what happened. When people don't understand, they can't execute. Period. End of story. And here's the kicker: they won't always tell you they don't understand. 68% of the population are high S's on the DISC profile. And high S's typically are reluctant to ask questions in a group setting. When asked any questions, you have to be much more direct in seeking any confusion or asking questions. They'll nod, they'll smile, and they'll walk out of that meeting room confused as hell. Thus, everything falls apart from the starting line. And you go out and say, "What are you doing? This is what we're working on." "Oh, I wasn't sure, and I didn't know. Why didn't you come ask me some questions?" They don't come ask questions. So don't ask that question. Make sure they don't have any questions at the end of the instructions. Don't go find out later. Make it crystal clear in the beginning. The fatal assumption, and here's the uncomfortable truth that separates the leadership heavyweights from the amateurs. The fatal assumption: don't assume people know what you need or why it matters. And in fact, you need to assume the opposite. They don't know, and you've got to spell it out for it. This isn't about intelligence. Let me get that real clear. You could have a room full of geniuses, and they still misinterpret or your directions, or especially if they're not crystal clear and to the point. Why? Because they can't read your damn mind. Let me break down what happens. You've been thinking about this project for weeks. It's clear in your head, but your team, your peers, your direct reports, whomever's in this meeting, they're hearing it for the first time. And with none of the context and background and thought that's gone into it on your part. So as you're communicating all this, everyone's filtering their information through their own experiences, not your experiences. Another huge assumption, through their own experiences, meaning they're hearing something entirely different than what you're saying. You must assume that they're hearing something different than what you're saying. Oh my God, Vaughn, what the hell are you talking about? I'm going to get into some solutions for you in just a second, but the real gut punch to all this, the more complex your business, worse this gets. Complexity breeds confusion, and confusion kills momentum. And the big missing link is the timeline vacuum. There's one deadly sin of leadership communication that's killing your team's execution. Timeline. Picture this. You've laid out a brilliant vision. You've explained the why with passion. The team is pumped. And then nothing happens. Why? Because you never answered the most basic human question. When? Who's going to do what by when? When do we start? When does this need to be done? What comes first? What comes second? What comes third? What priorities do I need to change? What's urgent versus what's important? All that's going through their head, and you've got to clear that up because that creates stagnation. When clear timelines are set, you inspire your team. Without clear timelines, even the most inspired team will drift. Priorities will blur. Often they'll start doing whatever feels right rather than exactly what you needed to be done. Urgency fades. And that kick-ass initiative becomes just another, when we get to it. Now, elite leaders, the high performers who get a lot of things done, don't just communicate the what and the why. They hammer home the when with crystal clarity. So let's talk about the commander's intent, which is your upcoming secret weapon. The military's been dealing with communication problems for centuries, and they've cracked the code with something called commander's intent. It's dead simple. The purpose, goal, desired intent, the critical timelines, that's it. It's dead simple. The purpose, the goal, desired end state, and critical timeline. Boom, boom. When a military unit knows the commander's intent, and in this case, you're the commander, they can adapt to changing battlefield conditions, just like what happens when they walk out that meeting room door, they're back into the battlefield of work. And the last thing you want to do is have to micromanage. Imagine in a military environment having to micromanage. It's impossible. And if the original plan goes to shit, and plans always do, they can improvise because you've had an intellectual discussion with them. You've opened up the doors for them to bring you ideas or thoughts or to point out to you where things are going wrong. You've empowered them to make the right decision. And that way you can achieve the ultimate objective and on schedule. That same principle, the commander's intent, it can revolutionize your business leadership. Let's talk about the 4 states of it. Purpose. What are we doing here? Goal. What specifically are we trying to achieve? End state. What does success look like when we're done? And you might want to also add in there, what happens if we don't get it done? What are the consequences? And then timeline. When do we start? What are the key milestones? What do we need to get done by when? And that often is compounded over weeks or months. And when must we have it completed? Now, you can change those timelines based on current conditions. They're not carved in stone, but they need to have a timeline. You need to have a timeline because when your team has these 4 pieces, magic happens. They stop waiting to be told what to do. They start making decisions that align with the mission, and they take ownership. Let me say that again. They take ownership. And ownership is the holy grail of leadership, my friends. And here's another essential part of leadership: SMART goals. It's your superpower to getting stuff done. If you want to kick it up another notch, add in SMART goals. The most badass leaders on the planet just set clear expectations. They frame everything through the lens of SMART goals. SMART acronym. SMART. S, specific. No vague BS. Exactly what needs to happen. Measurable. How will we know we're succeeding? Numbers, percentages, hard data. How are we going to measure? What's the needle going to look like? What needle are we following? Achievable. Is it challenging as hell? Yes. Is it impossible? No. Relevant. Is it connected directly to the bigger mission? And time bound, the holy grail. When it starts, when it ends, and the key milestones in between. And the last element, that last element of SMART, time bound, that gets left out in so many conversations. Another example. This is an example most of you can relate to. Husband and wife. It's the husband's job to take out the garbage. The wife comes home at the end of the day. Husband's sitting there on the couch watching YouTube. She walks into the kitchen and that garbage is still sitting there. That husband, that's his only job, supposed to take out. It's not out. She starts getting a little irritated. This happens all the time. Why doesn't he just take the garbage out? Why do I have to tell him everything? In the meantime, husband fully intends to take out that garbage. He absolutely on his timeline. The problem is we have two differing timelines. The wife has a timeline, the husband has a timeline. They've not communicated that timeline, so it creates frustration. It breeds disconnection because somebody is reading a perception into this that that's disrespectful. He doesn't respect my wishes. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. We are always getting mad, not just spoken in absolute. We are constantly getting mad at somebody else for not doing what we didn't tell them to do. And in this case, hey, honey, will you take the garbage out before I get home today? What time are you getting home? I'll be home around 5 o'clock. Okay, I'll have it out by then. That gets left out of the conversation. How often are you disappointed in giving directions or asking someone to do something and it doesn't get done in with the sense of urgency that you intended? If you don't tell them when, most people aren't naturally gifted with a high sense of urgency. Plus, they've got other priorities. There's a big part of the conversation that gets left out is what are we not going to do in order to get this done? Because I've got all these other things to do too. You've got to clear that up too. What are we going to pause? What are we going to delete? What are we going to move around in order to get your new project, your new initiative done? So let's cut through all the noise. I'm going to call this 3C plus a T approach. This is how you actually do it. This is how you communicate with the kind of clarity that will transform average teams into execution machine. 3C plus a T. First C, clear. Strip away the corporate jargon. Ditch the buzzwords. Quit trying to sound like a genius. Speak like a normal human being. Instead of saying, we need to leverage our core competencies to drive synergetic growth across our vertical market segments while optimizing customer touchpoints. Say, instead, we need to use our strengths to sell more to our existing customers. Much simpler that is. Concise. Number 2, second C. Your team's attention is a very precious resource. Don't waste it. You may be a master orator, but the more you talk, the less they listen. Get to the point. The longer your explanation, the more diluted your message becomes. The more you talk and don't involve them, collaborate with them, the less they're listening to you. They're thinking about what they're going to have for lunch. I call this the 3x30 rule. And this goes in almost any kind of presentation, whether you're having an online presentation with a prospect, whether you're meeting with your team, communicating needs with a vendor. Every 3 minutes, stop and engage your audience for a minimum of 30 seconds. 3x30. Every 3 minutes, stop, ask some questions. What do you think? What are your thoughts? How's that going to work? When do you see this happening? What's going to go wrong? What's your experiences with this? All open-ended questions. Because if you ask it and they can answer with a yes or a no, you're not getting input. You're not collaborating. Be concise. Don't overtalk it and stop every 3 minutes and involve your audience. Get to the point. The CEO of a Fortune 500 company once told me, if you can't fit it on a sticky note, it's too complicated. Think about that. Is that brutal? Is that hard? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. If you can't fit it on a sticky note, it's too complicated. Third C, compelling. Here's where most leaders completely drop the ball. They forget the why. God, I see this all the time. And it's hard to remember this I talk about communication very often in effective versus efficient. Efficient communication is what we're talking about is the problem. Effective communication is what we are talking about today. And effective communication, the type of communication that gets stuff done, always includes the why. Your team must understand not just what to do, but why it matters. What's in it for them? How can they take pride in this? How and why is this essential? How does this connect to the bigger picture? What happens if we succeed? What happens if we fail? What are the consequences? Then the why is very compelling, and motivation will take care of itself. Open that book. Very often people resist because they don't understand why. Give them the why. And of course, plus the T is the timeline. This is the game changer. This separates the amateurs from the pros. Great leaders are obsessed with timelines. They're clear with their timelines, clear start dates. The initiative kicks off Monday at 9 a.m., not soon or not ASAP, Monday, 9 a.m. Define milestones. They lay out phases. The first phase is going to be completed by January the 31st, phase 2 by March the 15th, etc. Or I need this done by 2 o'clock this afternoon. Drop everything you're doing. I'll take the heat for that. Get this done. Then we'll pick all that stuff back up. If you don't say those things, they're going to be very confused and they won't tell you. Don't count on them to ask questions. Don't make that assumption. And then make sure there are unmistakable deadlines. The final delivery is due April 30th at 5 p.m., not end of April or Q2. Final delivery is due April 30th, 5 p.m. Because when timelines are fuzzy, accountability is impossible. When timelines are crystal clear, you'll see excuses evaporate. So that's the theory I'm laying out to you. Let's take it to practice. Let's execute this. Put this communication to action. Let's put it into a real world scenario. Let's just say you're launching a new customer service initiative. Here's the difference. Weak manager approach. We need to improve our customer service metrics this quarter. Let's try to reduce wait times, increase satisfaction scores. I'll send an email with the details. An elite leader approach. Listen up, y'all. Our customers are waiting an average of 12 minutes for help, and our competitors have cut it down to 3 minutes. Every minute we make them wait, we lose their loyalty. Our mission is to cut wait times to 4 minutes or less within the next 30 days. And we're going to launch this initiative next Monday, October the 3rd. And by October the 17th, I want wait times under 8 minutes. By October the 31st, we're going to hit our 4-minute target. And when we nail this, our customer retention will jump up at least 20%, worth about $2 million annually. This isn't just about the metrics. It's about showing our customers they matter. Now let's talk about it. Sally, what are your thoughts? Ed, what's been your experience with this? June, what's going to go wrong here? Are our timelines going to be worth it? What do you think about the timelines, Edgar? See the difference? The second approach is clear, concise, compelling, inclusive, collaborative, and crucially timeline. No ambiguity about when it starts, what the milestones are, and when it must be completed. Now here's the acid test. And again, managers do not practice this, but it's powerful. And I'll make you a bet at the end of this. If you want to know if your communication is actually working, try this simple test. Ask someone on the team to explain the mission back to you in a gotcha way, but in an honest, I want to make sure I'm being clear way. And if they can articulate why you're doing this, what success looks like, how it connects with the big picture, and when it starts and when it must be completed, then congratulations, you've achieved clarity. If not, that's on you. Very often we blame it on them, but it's on you. And I'll bet you the first time you ask this, explain this back to me, the best they'll do is 50%. And you are going to send that person or those persons out of that meeting room with only 50% of the understanding they needed. And you wonder why you get frustrated. If you don't ask, you don't know. So ask, but in a way that is not a gotcha way. And as they respond, you cannot show through your body language, facial expression, your words, your tone, frustration, because it's just natural. And almost every time you go through these scenarios and you ask, okay, what have we decided on here, y'all? What are we going to do? Somebody explain it all back to me. Then, and only then will you understand. And as they start explaining it back, you'll start getting, if you've been collaborating through this entire meeting, you'll start getting input from others to help that person along or to add to it or to add clarity to things. They'll take over for you. It is an amazing outcome. And if you want to move from just being a manager to a leader, you're going to have to make this communication shift. The evolution from manager to leader requires a fundamental shift in how you think about your communication. Managers communicate to direct, to tell people what to do. Leaders communicate to empower. Managers give detailed instructions on how to do the work. Leaders focus on the what, why, and when. Then get the hell out of the way. Decentralized command. Now, this shift is scary as hell to a lot of new leaders, maybe even some existing leaders who haven't approached it this way because they don't trust. Well, you're never going to be able to trust until you allow them to build trust. As long as you're keeping things too close to the vest and controlling too much, they're never going to give you the ability to trust because they haven't had enough practice. Letting go. Letting go of control sometimes feels like jumping out of an airplane, but that's the paradox of leadership. You gain more control by giving it up. When your team understands the mission at a bone deep level, including the critical timeline, they'll make better decisions. They'll communicate with you better. They'll communicate you better than you could ever dictate it yourself. Empowerment, the leadership development secret nobody talks about. And that might sting a little, but if you're frustrated that your team isn't stepping up, the problem is probably your communication. It's tough love time, friends. I give it. And these leaders who complain about their team's lack of initiative are often the same leaders who keep critical communication close to the vest, communicate in vague generalities, change directions without explaining why, assume everyone sees what they see, and leave timelines fuzzy with ASAPs and as soon as you can BS. Great leadership development starts with great communication, period. Now, think about this. Having a weekly communication audit. Let me give you a challenge. And yes, this applies to you, even if you think you're already a communications back. I was humbled by the same thing years ago. I learned a very valuable lesson that I'm teaching you today. Take time this week to evaluate your communication. Ask yourself, do I truly understand why we're doing what we're doing? Do you understand why? Have I clearly articulated both the what and the why to my team? Could each team member explain our priorities to a stranger, somebody that meet me in an elevator? Am I assuming knowledge that might not be there? Have I established crystal clear timelines for every initiative? Then do something most leaders never have the guts to do. Ask your team if your communication is clear, not in a group setting where social pressure kicks in, but in one-on-ones where they can be honest. Allow them to be honest. Probably going to be shocked by some of the disconnects you discover. So the bottom line, leadership isn't rocket science. It's hard, but it does require ruthless commitment to clarity. When people don't understand, they can't execute. So take ownership of making sure they do. Cut through the confusion, eliminate the assumptions, communicate with purpose, and for God's sakes, put a damn stake in the ground with clear timelines. Do this consistently, and you won't just improve your execution, you'll transform your entire leadership presence. This is transformative, the transformational triangle of change. Your team will walk through walls for a leader who communicates with this kind of clarity, purpose, and precision around timing. The choice is yours. Let's wrap this up. You can continue with the status quo of assuming everyone's on the same page, and they're not, or you can step it up and own the clarity of your communication. Will it be, y'all? Thanks for listening. Business at RDL Training, and look at all of our programs. We'd love to help you in your leadership journey. You, your team, will help you develop the leadership skills with the tools and knowledge to be highly effective, results-driven leaders. Visit the website, rdltraining.com, Romeo Delta Lima Training.com. Now, get after it.